I'm Dorothy Stroud. I'm from Massachusetts, actually, and I'm 97 years old. I was born in 1921. I was the youngest of 7, and I guess I was pretty spoiled. I had 3 older sisters and 3 older brothers, and they took care of me. And in fact, they'd take me to school to show and tell. My father died, and we had to move from a little town and into the city. I was born in Auburn, but I went to school in Worcester. I couldn't go to college. I was one of 7. Right after the Depression, this was back in the 30s, so there was no way. A woman in that days, and where I came from anyway, it was considered a waste of time.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
How were your holidays?
Merry Christmas.
Right,
Happy
Merry Christmas.
birthday. It's been a long time.
It's been. You been doing okay?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Good,
Well,
good.
you know, for my age, I'm okay. Let me take this off. I don't think I need it now. There were still 5 of us at home. The 2 oldest were married. We never went without anything. Never was really hungry or without shoes because we went through the Depression, you know. It was very bad. But we did fine.
And you go ahead and take your hearing aids. Is that one of your pretty necklaces that you made?
Uh-huh.
You still making your
No,
jewelry?
I retired at 95.
Oh, okay.
I don't
It's
do it
pretty, I
anymore.
like it.
When I was 21 in 1942, I was thinking about joining the Army. They had started advertising.
Today, the WACs are serving with the armed forces in every major theater of war. The first contingent to arrive in Australia gets a real welcome. Reporting for duty, half a world away from home, these United States Army women are making a vital contribution to the cause of the United Nations.
And my family, my brothers and sisters all said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Oh, honey, you don't want to do that. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know who you'll be living with or who you'll be working with. You don't want to do that. But my mother said, go for it. Where's the photos? I can't find it. I'm really new at this. I'm learning, and it's hard because I can't remember. I feel like a pioneer because it was all so new.
Ms. Stroud?
We had a physical and they evaluated us before we went into training. Then we went to Des Moines, Iowa.
All right, so I understand we're getting you some new hearing aids.
Uh-huh.
So first thing we need to do is do a new hearing test.
Okay.
Make sure that nothing has changed there, and then we can get you some hearing aids ordered, okay?
Okay.
Come on in here. I'm going to put some earphones in your ears. When you hear the beeps, I need you to press this button, okay?
Uh-huh.
The beeps are going to get very, very soft. So even if you think you hear it, I need you to press that button, okay?
Part of the training was done at that time with men
Can you go ahead and take your glasses off for me?
because there weren't enough women yet available to do this. They were all pretty new, like I was new.
Conservation of manpower is a matter of first importance. The Women's Army Auxiliary Corps was organized to assist in meeting this need by releasing soldiers from non-combat duties. These women are to take over the jobs of soldiers behind the lines and here at home.
Supplies for the new arrivals, everything uniform, from underwear to overcoats.
We were training in men's overcoats because our uniforms hadn't come in yet. And they were just hanging, you know, dragging the floor. But it kept us warm.
I'm all fun. Well, up and through, then down and through.
We were living in stables, but it was clean.
On the double!
Everything had been removed and it was just bedding. It was all open. and everything was very, very, very strict. I learned to really be organized. Believe me, I am, and I still am. I'm still organized.
Are you hearing the beeps? Okay, press it real hard and then let go. There you go.
I had a friend here that we'd made the jewelry together, and she would get so angry with me because she was so slap happy, you know, everything was thrown around, and I was so organized. She used to say, "I wished I could be like you," and I said, "No, you don't."
Okay, we're gonna put this in your ear, okay? You may not be able to hear at all with this in your ear.
That's okay. I've done this before.
The quartermaster set us up with the quantities of things that men used. But we were women, you know, and it became a problem, especially toilet paper. We were always running out of it. And so finally they had to go to the headquarters and raise a lot of fuss that we needed more supplies.
Wax on review. Basic training finished for another class. Wax, fit, alert, proud of their corps, prepared for the next big step in their new life, ready to serve with the Army, to do the jobs the Army thinks they do best.
You take care, okay?
Okay, thank you. Juan, this is Dorothy. I'm ready for pickup. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. He's on his way. I didn't know I had a New England accent. I didn't know I had an accent. You know, everybody where I live talked like I do. But this woman, one of the recruits, was following me around in the PX one day. After that was over, the next morning I was at the sink getting ready to go get dressed, and she was beside me, and she said, "You're the lady from the PX?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "You talk just like Mrs. Roosevelt." She was following my accent. At that time, the Air Force was part of the Army. So I was in the Air Force part of the Army.
From training centers and specialist schools to every part of the United States to take over permanent assignments. Wax on the move, into the field, all of them, to take over the duties for which they have been trained. Self-reliant, self-sustaining units, trained to settle quickly in new quarters to get down to their job without delay.
I was a clerk typist, so that's what I got into. Some of the women got into kitchens, and some drove trucks. But other than that, there wasn't a heck of a lot, you know. From Des Moines, Iowa, they sent me back to Boston, and we set up a system of aircraft warning. They had big charts, big tables, and every time an airplane came on in the area, we plotted it. And we stayed there about 6 months and trained civilians to do this. From there, I went to Orlando, Florida. It wasn't Disneyland, and it was just plain Orlando, Florida. It was a little air base. It was great. I loved it there, but I decided I wanted to go overseas, so I volunteered for Europe, and I got it. And then I had to take additional training, where we learned to shoot and to put a rifle together again and all this stuff that I never had to do because I was working in a headquarters, you know.
Thousands of WACs volunteer for overseas duty, eager to serve in the actual theater of operations, the goal toward which they've worked and trained.
I crossed the Atlantic Ocean in 1944 on the Queen Elizabeth. She's the sister ship to the Queen Mary. And we were unescorted, and we zigzagged across the ocean to miss the U-boats. And it was 5 days and 5 nights of terror. And we landed in Scotland. And we came down through Scotland into some place in the Midlands of England. I don't remember the name of the town. I don't know if I even knew it because everything was so restricted. There was no street signs, no county town signs because of the possibility of invasion. We stayed there for 2 or 3 weeks waiting for transportation to France.
But the English Channel, we just did it overnight. We'd get on it. It was everywhere. It was really hush-hush.
We didn't know what time we were leaving from. I didn't know what town the Rebel Depot was in. There was no signs in England, no street signs, no directions for traveling. They took it down to make it more difficult after Germany got in, you know. But I did the English Channel very well. It was rough. The channel was really rough. When I went to overseas training, they cut my orders early, and I was there 2 days before I was needed. And another woman was in the same situation, and two of us were rolling around in this great big empty barracks. Her name was Gates. I called her Gatesy. She called me Dryden. That was my last name at the time. And she went on the ship with me. We went to France together, and we worked in the same office. The coal mines were behind the enemy lines, so we couldn't get coal. So everybody was freezing all the time. And it was difficult to type when you're so cold. You know, it's really, it was a tough winter, but we got along. We got fine. JC and I, we were buddies. When we were on the beachhead, they weren't expecting us, so they didn't have anything ready for us. So we had to sleep on the ground until they got stuff. It was raining, and it was cold, but we passed it up. Every night we'd just take our shoes off because they were so muddy, you know. On the beachhead, they took us over to a outside kitchen for a hot meal one time. And when we were standing around waiting, one of the cooks came up to me and he said, "Would you like a helmet of hot water?" I said, "Oh boy, would I ever." I'd rather have the hot water than the food. So he gave me a film helmet full of hot water, and Gacy got one too, and we scrubbed up a little bit. And they took us to this beautiful hotel in Paris. And we walked in and we were a mess. And there's these women all sitting there in their polished buttons, their brass buttons all polished, you know, and their shoes all polished. And we walked in looking like drags.
We honored her June 12th.
Yes.
I remember first meeting her.
Oh, she was one of the ones honored.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember first meeting her, and she was, she basically said she didn't think that her service even mattered anymore because it's been so long, you know, that she served that she didn't even think anybody would care. So
Can't wait to meet her. It's a special occasion.
You know, I've lost all of my grandparents. What I wouldn't do to go back in time and have them, but
I would love to talk to my
there
grandpa.
are red-blooded Americans, you know, still all around us. And spend some time at the VA or go to a nursing home. Get to know some of these folks, love on them, hear about their life and their experience.
Did that. I used to decorate cakes.
She did.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We share lots of things.
That was one of my hobbies years ago.
Wow, see?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
very beautiful.
Looks just like me.
Is it something you'd like to do to share your story?
You know, I never talked about it until I saw the 50th-year anniversary of the D-Day landing.
Yes.
Well, I did that. About 2 months later, I landed on Omaha Beach. I had a backpack on, I had a helmet on, and boots. I had to climb down the side of a ship on a rope ladder, and I landed down into one of these little landing ships that they took me into the shore, the front limped down, just like they did on D-Day with the men. I did that.
So you paved the way for all of us.
Yeah.
For what you did and for everything that you went through.
There was people there before me, but there weren't many, you know.
Right.
And when I got there, I realized where I was. It was Omaha Beach. And I looked around and all the bunkers were still up there. And I thought, how in heaven's name did these men do it? You know, there was such a little shoreline. It was very short. Thousands got killed. Yeah, it was awful. Paris was free by then. That's how I got over there. Paris got free. Then they started bringing the women in. We were the headquarters for the depots that were spread out in France and Belgium. And we provided ammunition and weaponry to the troops. I was there when the Battle of the Bulge, when they tried to take us back. I got the recorded gear thanking me for helping to free them. I thought that was kind of neat. I've had a lot of experiences.
Miss Dorothy, can I ask a question? What was your proudest moment?
My proudest moment?
Proudest moment.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. When was my happiest moment?
Yeah, or even your happiest
When they
moment.
turned the lights on back in Paris.
Yes.
Well, let's face it. We had cold water.
Right.
We had the coal mines were behind the enemy lines, so we had no heat for 44, and no hot water for bathing for 44, and the food was awful because it was coming over from the States in cans. Spam, canned beef stew, stuff like that. All of it was canned stuff, and because we were feeding Europe also, you know. So when the lights came back on, the war was over, it really made a big difference.
Right.
It was July 14th, Bastille Day. The war had just ended. The whole town was open. The lights were on, the fountains were back on. It was a gala time. It was wonderful. The war was over. It was over. You know, we women have come a long way.
Yes.
We have come a long way.
Yes, we have.
How do you feel about how much women have evolved in today's military?
Oh, you know, it's fantastic, isn't it? I think it's, you know, when I was in, there was no idea of a woman staying in and retiring. That was not even part of the project. No one ever thought about it. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for women, especially a woman who can't go to college.
Yeah.
That's an education for you.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing I want to tell you about all of this. When the troops entered the death camps, they had Signal Corps with them that took pictures just the way it was right then. They asked us to see those pictures so we would never forget and not to let anybody else forget what happened over there. We did. I'll never forget it. It was awful. Can you imagine?
Things that we can only read about in a book.
You don't hear about it anymore.
Right.
But you have to remember it.
Absolutely.
You have to remember it. I came home. I went to school for 2 years under the GI Bill, and then I went to work. I went to work for an advertising agency, and I loved it. It was kind of a crazy place, but it was fun.
Okay, they're on now. How does that sound? Is that
Very loud.
Okay.
Wow, it's loud.
Okay. Is that too loud?
Loud.
Okay.
That's loud. I'd been there a couple of years, and I got a letter, "We want you," so I had to go back in. It was for the Korean campaign.
Okay. So you have a cool app on your phone now where you can also adjust your hearing aids from your phone instead of having to reach up behind your ear.
Okay.
Okay.
So where is it?
So it's right here. It's called Hear Max. Okay. You click on that.
First I went to Okinawa, which is a little island, and it was really very primitive, and it was really in bad shape from the war still. And I worked for a G2, which was intelligence.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you, Sonia. And they were just building this up. There wasn't anything. I didn't have a real job. I thought, I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of sitting around. And so the WAC staff advisor came over to inspect us.
I want to go through some of your photos. So, tell me about these.
Oh, tell you?
Yeah.
Well, this is my typewriter. I didn't do any of the work. I just handled all the paperwork, so I knew everything that was going on.
Oh.
It was kind of fun.
I bet.
And this is part of the women that I worked with at G1. And the woman in the center is WAC staff advisor for that section. She's the one that visited me in Okinawa and asked me what I was doing there, and if I was happy, and I said no, I didn't have a job that I enjoyed. And I said, but if I was in Japan, I'd fill up a full tour. And 2 weeks later, she called me and she says, pack your bags, I got a job for you. So I went to Japan. We worked in a building that was a replica of the Pentagon. It was fabulous, and it was loaded with generals. Believe me, it was loaded with generals. Every department had a general head, even mine, you know. This is General Peplow. He was our chief at 8th Army headquarters in Japan.
Okay.
Up until that time, I had a colonel, and they brought him in, and just in time to give me an award.
Oh, well, okay, good. I love this picture. Tell me about this one. I love this.
I love this picture, yes. I had a civilian man working with us. I can't remember what he did, but I think he was a Jeep driver. And he had a little girl who was coming up with a birthday. And he asked me if I would buy her a birthday cake, because they'd never had one.
They're so darling.
Uh-huh. I put in 5 years on my second enlistment. After I got home and got out of the service, it was in the past, you know.
Do you feel like you're a veteran?
Yes.
Have you always felt like that?
Yes, because I've done a lot.
You have, but you never talked about it.
Well, I didn't because no one else did. But really, I've talked about it more since I've been here. Some of the women there got onto the fact that I was military, especially Joe, our friend, you know.
Right.
And so I just told them what was going on, how it had been for me, you know. Things have changed so much since when I went in that I really can't compare. I can't, because when I went in, it was not a career. It was something temporary. There was no thought about staying in and retiring. There we go. I've always been able to make friends and do things. I've always kept kind of busy. I like crafts, you know, and I read a lot. Years ago, we had a craft room, and Joe and I went up there one day and started making bracelets. They were really old, cheap beads, but they were kind of fun. And some of the residents would come by and say, well, will you sell them? Look at this.
Oh, wow.
So we started buying better beads, and I got a hold of some catalogs, and we started having sales. I'd open up at 9:30, and we were sold out by 2:30. We put that money to use. Isn't she pretty?
That's gorgeous.
Uh-huh. It took us a while to build up enough money to put that library in, because we had to buy all the bookcases. We had to put about $1,000 worth of lighting up in the ceiling. See, I change it every week. People look forward to see them. I'm doing kittens right now. Okay. Golly, here I made up jewelry here for years. We kept busy every day. It kept me young. It kept me young.
Well, this is an honor to have Miss Dorothy with us to release the doves, and Mr. John Farco. So we're just going to ask y'all to lift the box up together.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.